So the new Master Duel ban list is about to drop, and this will change the meta. So today I'm going to show you the 5 decks that I believe will be the very best to ladder up to Diamond and maybe also win some other events. However, I will also be going over some of the previously strong decks that I believe will be hurt the most by this list and will therefore fall off a little. So starting with a deck that was really solid, but because of this list became a bit weaker, we have Virtual World. Really cool strategy, you know, 3+3 is 6, 6+3 is 9, and so forth. That's all it does, and it can make some crazy boards, but the way it was usually ending in the game right now was making King of All Calamities. However, this card was banned, and so now the deck does kind of lose like its biggest power play. Now, not to worry, this doesn't mean the deck is actually bad. You can still do a variety of really cool things with Virtual World. It still lost a really big part of its win condition. Next, for a deck that gets slightly weaker, we have Fluanderies. Now, of course, Flu will still randomly beat people. It is still a very annoying deck to deal with for many. It's still going to be strong, but it is becoming weaker. Pot of Prosperity was a crucial consistency card for this deck, and with this card being limited now, Flu will also go down in potency quite a bit. The deck is already known to not be the most consistent, and we are still missing the consistency buff that we're normally getting sometime in the near future. So for now, without Prosperity, I think this deck is getting a fair bit weaker. And then finally, for decks that are getting weaker, my dear boys, we have the Phantom Knights. Now you might think, hey, nothing got hit this list for Phantom Knights. Why would they get weaker? Well, because of the DPE hits. We saw Celestial being banned and Fusion Destiny being put to 1. Phantom Knights already runs quite a few bricks going second. So the deck had already, you know, some brick issues in the Brave engine, in the traps, in the DPE package, and now you basically weakened the DPE package so much, it is almost questionable how good it is. Now, of course, this deck is still forced to play it because they still want to be able to do all the sidelock plays, but now suddenly you lost your draw too. And so the bricks, together with not being great going second, and then also losing your DPE draw too, I believe Phantom Knights is now really gonna go down a fair bit. Is the deck gonna be bad? No, but it's gonna be worse, and I don't think it will crack the top 5 that we're now gonna go over. First, we have Dragon Link. Dragon Link, you better get used to it. It is the deck that cannot die. In the TCG, in Master Duel, it is always just good. It's great going first because it has just the craziest combos. It has Chaos Space, it has Boot Sector, it has basically its own emergency teleport, but for the dragons. Like, this deck can never die. You hit one thing and it has 5 more cards to replace it. It also has the Brave engine. It can run a bunch of hand traps, especially because a lot of these hand traps are light, meaning you can ditch them for Chaos Space going first. Overall, this deck will not die, and even in the TCG, you know, they've tried, they've hit many things, but the deck just keeps on evolving, adding new things. So I think this is a pretty solid number 5 right here. Next, on number 4, we have Eldritch. I think Eldritch is still a really insane, unfair deck. A lot of decks are still not willing to play a bunch of back row hate because it makes them weaker into some of the other really good decks. And so are people gonna start cutting their good hand traps for the back row hate? Usually not. This means that Eldritch still has some free reign on the ladder as long as it's best of 1. And sure, some of the strongest floodgates were hit, like Skill Drain to 2, Imperial Order banned, Vanities to 0, Vanities also banned, but keep in mind that there's plenty of other floodgates this deck will gladly use. Again, unless all of those floodgates get hit, like the Tikaboo, the Rivalry, the Gozen, the Summon Limits, and so forth. I'm forgetting a billion right now. Unless you start hitting all of those, Eldritch will keep on living. And there's even variants of Eldritch that aren't reliant on those floodgates. We've seen YCSs and so forth being topped by Eldritch with Brave splashes, Eldritch with Branded, which is also coming later, though that's not this format. Eldritch is just a very splashable engine, but right now in Master Duel, it's also just a powerful deck on its own. For that reason, it deserves the 4th spot, even though previous ban lists it was already hit, even though we have even more floodgate hits, I think this deck is still alive and well. It also doesn't get hurt by the Prosperity hit quite as much as Flu does. Of course, this deck does like running Prosperity. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like it's gonna die just because of the hit. It's already a fairly consistent deck on its own. Number 3, we have all the Synchro Brave piles. Now, of course, there's a variety of versions, like we have the Tenyi Worm style. There's some 3-axis type of deals, but all they do is pretty much the same. So I'm just putting them in the same category. If it's a Brave deck that synchros a bunch and then ends on insane boards, makes some Hulk plays and so forth, it's a Synchro Brave Brave pile. And with all those variations, you know, there's always going to be one that's really insane, and most of them are just really, really good. We also saw this deck having major success at YCSs in the TCG side of things, and I don't think this is any different here. Now, of course, they do get a bit worse with the DPE nerf, but even without DPE, just like we saw in real life as well, once Verte got banned, variations of this deck still existed and were still doing very, very well. And I think it's the same here. And again, don't forget, we still have Hulk and Auroradon and all of that good stuff. Number 2, we have Sword Soul Tenyi. As we saw on the new ban list, they basically didn't do anything to this deck. It was already one of the strongest decks, and this will just keep on going now. Sword Soul is a super lean deck in a sense that you have the Sword Soul engine that's very lean, almost no bricks, and you have the Tenyi engine, very lean, almost no bricks, and then you have a bunch of room for going second cards and techs like hand traps and so forth. Just like in the TCG, this deck just wouldn't die. You know, they would keep on hitting cards around it, like they would do something about Auroradon, they would do something about this and that, but the deck would just keep on iterating, and because of the lean engine, let's say, as long as that doesn't get hit in any way, this deck will keep on performing pretty well. I believe this deck will only really leave the Master Duel meta once we get something like Sprite. And then finally, what's in my opinion the best deck, we have Prank Kids Brave. Now, I already said on this channel quite a while ago that I thought this was the best deck. Some people were talking about other decks and so forth, but nah, this was the best deck. Even in the TCG, back when we had the choice to play this, I believe this was actually best deck. We also saw it performing very well at the YCSs and so forth. And sure, the ban list just hit Meow Meow, but again, if you think back to the TCG side of things, we had Meow Meow at 1 anyway, and it was still performing. So it'll be the same here in my opinion. This is still an incredible deck. Every single Prank Kid is basically a 1-card full combo combined with a Brave engine that lets you chain block and then also be immune to hand traps, Battle Butler being a double Raigeki, and then afterwards you can easily link climb into an access code and just kill your opponent. It's an incredible deck, both going first, going second, very lean engines, lots of hand trap room. This is in my opinion best deck. Now, is it best deck by a mile? I don't think so. I think a lot of the decks in this top 5 that I just spoke of are very close together in power level, but I do think if you're gonna be trying to climb and you want to do it quickly, which is pretty important, you know, technically a lot of decks can reach Diamond 1 really easily, but if you want to do it quickly and efficiently, I think one of these 5 will definitely be solid picks. So that's all. Hope you found this interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.